A new social vending machine, how our senses determine what we eat. And we've got to wonder if shopper label reading habits do vary depending on the type of food. For the week of May 9th, 2011, this is Food News Today. Good morning. Immediately following Food News Today, we continue with a live discussion in our chat room right below. Please sign in and join us. Food News Today is sponsored by ConAgra Foods, who shares with me the desire to provide the most current, interesting, and unbiased food news. Now, we start this morning with a question from last week's chat. Phil Stevens asked, is the current trend to use cane sugar versus using high fructose corn syrup a fad, or is it here to stay? Well, I've got to tell you something, Phil. This is an issue that goes back with me for many years. About 10 years ago, Katie Couric and I on the Today Show started this discussion, and the Corn Refiners Association got involved as well, as you can imagine. Well, the reality is that the reason that so many food companies are switching away from high fructose corn syrup has nothing to do with the science. It has nothing to do with how it metabolizes. It has to do with listening to what consumers have to say. And consumers are saying loud and clear that they would prefer not to use high fructose corn syrup. So to answer your question, not a fad, it's a trend, and I think we're going to see it continue even more. Now, more discussion of your questions and comments will follow in our chat room below immediately following the broadcast. And hey, don't feel you've got to wait. Just go ahead and type as I talk at any point during the show. I promise it won't distract me. In this morning's Extreme Retail, we take a look at Vending, a new machine that is trying to ride the wave of social media. Social vending is quite the concept. Not only can you buy yourself a drink, but you can give a beverage to another person and also give back to the community at the same time by connecting with Pepsi Refresh, the brand's community outreach and charity program. To buy a soda for a friend, you just select a beverage and enter the recipient's name, email, or mobile number, and a personalized text message that includes a code that's redeemable at another vending machine. The message can even contain a short video that's recorded by the machine. Sort of reminds me of the old-time photo booth. Do take note that Pepsi is also using this social experience as a tool to collect email addresses for future promotions. In Food Sense, we Skype visit with Marcia Pelchat, an associate member of the Monell Chemical Senses Center, whose research on food preferences, especially the mechanisms of food cravings and their responses, gives us insight into why we eat what we eat. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do at Monell.
I am a sensory scientist, and I study the psychology of eating. Everyone at Monell does something having to do with the senses of taste and smell, and of course eating has a lot to do with both.
We hear a lot about food cravings these days. How real are they? Are they hardwired into our brain?
Cravings are certainly real. Close to 100% of young women report food cravings, and well over 60% of everybody else reports them. Are they hardwired into our brains? Cravings are simply strong desires. And yes, our brains have mechanisms for strong desires of all kinds.
So clearly men and women are different. We hear that all the time. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Well, maybe men are from convenience stores and women are from gourmet stores?
Well, not necessarily. Women are more likely to report cravings when they're young. When they get older, they're no more likely to report cravings than are men the same age. But also there are gender differences in the types of foods craved. Women report slightly more cravings for sweet than non-sweet foods. Men report slightly more cravings for entrees than for sweet foods. However, it's not unusual for a man to crave chocolate or for a woman to crave Chinese food.
It seems like just about every restaurant is selling something with truffles these days. As we get more sophisticated palates, how do we acquire tastes for products like truffles?
Probably the most important determinant of what people like is what they are familiar with. So as more and more restaurant menus include truffles, more and more people are familiar with them and come to like them. However, there are some people who just don't get truffles, and we think that that may be due to what we call a specific anosmia. Anosmia is lack of a sense of smell, and a specific anosmia is an insensitivity to one odorant in a person who has an otherwise normal sense of smell. Truffles contain a compound called androstenone, which only about 50% of the adult population is really sensitive to.
So summer's right around the corner. I look around and everybody seems to be fat. Well, I know that only about 65% of Americans are either overweight or obese, but can you imagine if we could just retrain people's taste buds to eat only healthy foods? What would that mean?
Okay, well, first of all, if I knew the answer to that, I would be sitting on the Riviera in a bikini. But that is an important scientific question, and we don't know the answer. We do know that we can train people to crave new foods, but so far we've only done this with healthy foods that contain a lot of calories. Whether this can be done with foods that don't have a lot of calories or foods that are not sweet is an open question. But of course, the other half of the weight gain equation is activity. And that's something that people have to think about as well.
So let's say we take an 18-year-old female teenager who has a craving for ice cream and just loves to sit in front of the TV and eat pint after pint after pint. What kind of advice could you give her to control that craving?
I would say that there are two ways to approach cravings without losing control. One is to go out and purchase a small amount of the craved food and enjoy it. The other is really for people who have a terrible weight problem. And for those people with problem foods, they may be better off going cold turkey. That will help to reduce the frequency of the craving.
Cravings are just one aspect of determining what we eat. And as Americans seem to be giving up on getting in shape, more on that one next week, we wonder if people are really paying attention to the foods that they buy. Reading food labels is an important step in choosing foods that are right for each individual. But this critical step is still a challenge. Everything from actually getting shoppers to read the label to understanding what it all means. We asked our Supermarket Guru consumer panel about food labels and set out to understand if consumers' label reading habits differed between food and beverage categories. Now, a large majority, nearly 70% of the consumer panel, say that they always read the package for nutritional facts and the ingredients. Virginia Lee, a Supermarket Guru fan on Facebook, says that she's been reading food labels since before the labels had decent information. Now, that's prior to the early 80s. That's right when her dad had a heart attack and they were trying to figure out sodium levels in everything. She says it's so much easier now. Now, let's head back to the supermarket. In the beverage aisle, consumers are most concerned with sugars, calories, and ingredients. When it comes to cakes and desserts, it's calories first, ingredients, then fats and sugars, both at 60%. When shopping for condiments and sauces, the biggest concern is the actual ingredients, followed by sodium content and then sugars. Now, when we head to the refrigerated dairy case, it's all about the fat, with 64% of shoppers saying that's the number one fact that they look for. When we head over to the freezer aisle, 70% read the label for ingredients and sodium, That's followed by calories, fat, and sugars. Back to Facebook, Jennifer Cooper Swan says, I always read nutrition facts and ingredients. If my allergies does not rule out an ingredient, then I look twice at the ingredients. I tend to reshelve the products that I need a chemistry degree to figure out. My kids are allowed a certain amount of junk food, but it's minimal compared to what other parents allow their kids. Life isn't perfect, but I try. Well said, Jennifer, as we all try every time we go into the store. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, if you've got a question during the week, feel free to email me, phil@supermarketguru.com. Don't forget to check out supermarketguru.com every single day and the Lemper Report every single day for new stories. For Food News Today, I'm Phil Lempert. Thanks for joining us. If you have a colleague in retailing, the media, or a blogger who would also like to receive our advanced email, please ask them to visit foodnewstoday.com to sign up. Next week's stories will be in your Tuesday email, and also starting next week, you can click on a link and we will send you a link to the program immediately following the show. Have a great week.